build it, he will.
It's the Skinny on Sports Podcast with Aaron Cowk.
I throw balls far. You want good words? Data language.
Talk real sports with a real man.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
And now, here's the be-all, end-all, know-it-all of high school, college, and pro sports. Aaron Skinny Cowk with the Skinny on Sports.
We're talking about practice, man. I'm the MVP.
Good Thursday morning out there, Western Oklahoma. Excuse me. Welcome to the Skinny on Sports right here on 98.1 FM. The Sports Animal. Glad to have you along for the next hour. You know what's truly amazing, Jared?
What would that be?
That the NFL has been able to turn an event that everybody knows beforehand what's happening, yet it's a week-long event. Everybody knows who's on the schedule for all these teams.
Yeah.
They just don't necessarily know what day and in what order.
Yeah.
And yet the NFL is able to make this a week-long thing. With the actual reveal tonight, we've still learned who the first game is. Man, what a difference this season's going to look like in some of those primetime games with some of the teams that have not been there in a long time. We can hit that a little bit. College football topics. Best non-conference games. Also, in the playoff era, who are the best teams to never make it to the playoff? I'm not talking about historical. I just mean in that time period. But then who has the best chance to make their first playoff this particular season? Did you see Charammel's article about Bedlam? I thought it was very interesting, talking about how a lot of it doesn't appear right now like a lot of the teams are going to play each other in the regular season of Bedlam, but postseason Bedlam games are way more likely with OU moving conferences and how that could kind of work out. Of course, 4A baseball starts today. We'll talk about that, some NBA playoff stuff from last night. But first, before we go through the whole spiel, the daily spiel of what's going on, we have a young listener headed up to the baseball game. Trell Windsor. What's up, Trell? You need to be nice all day long. Root hard for the Big Elks. Or Granite and Gigi and your mother will be upset with you. So be nice today, Trell. What's up? Also, Wyatt and Tripp, what's up? They're there too.
Whole crew going.
Whole crew.
All going.
Big
Awesome.
crew going.
Awesome.
Big crew going to the game. 225-9698 is the phone or the text line. 225-9698. Give us a call. Shoot us a text. We can talk about any of those things. Whatever else might be on your mind, feel free to chime in at 225-9698. If you're going to be outside the listening area, you can stay in touch with the show a couple of ways. Log on to kadsam.com or download the Paragon app. The app's got it all. Radio, Penny News. Brand new edition of the Penny News can be picked up right now at your favorite local newsstands. Go pick up a free copy of the Penny News. You can check it out online, also thepennynews.com. Big Elk TV online today, 1:30 for the quarterfinal against Oologah. Somebody ought to alert the NFHS that Elk City's playing Oologah and not Salisal. That's cute.
They obviously turned the game off
In the sixth inning.
in the sixth inning, thinking, all right, it's Salisal.
People have to pay money for that.
Another failure.
Just rack them up.
But you don't have to pay money to watch it on Big
You
Elk
do not
TV.
have to pay money to watch it on Big Elk TV. Jared and Hunter will be there.
We'll be doing our best. We
1:30.
Listen, I'm going to put the plea out. Just bear with us.
It's all good.
We'll do our best.
It's all good. 1:30 Big Elks and Oologah, the Mustangs of Oologah. Also, Skinny on Sports podcast. If you missed the show entirely, you can go check that out at just wherever podcasts. Wherever you get a podcast, you can get ours too. How are you today, Jared?
Very well. Very well. I'd like to say I'm enjoying this rain, but it's making me worry about said baseball games.
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of starting to dissipate the further east it goes.
Yeah.
I think the real problems may be caused later on when the thunderstorms start building up in that area. But I do believe that the Elks and Oologah will be able to get their game in before anything really happens.
I think so.
Just from the timeline that the meteorologists are firing out there.
There are just a couple of things that I'm worried about. And in this order, it's one, driving home, hoping I don't drive through any of this stuff. And two, getting the games after Elk City's game's done.
Yeah, I think it's because of the nature of the storms. Sometimes they don't necessarily just pop up everywhere.
Right.
So that could be a positive, but I don't know how good a chances that all four of those get played. I don't really think the chances are all that great. Which then you and I were talking about what happens next.
It's a cluster.
What happens tomorrow?
It could leak
yeah.
all the way into next Tuesday. It feels like because of, we're talking about. It's not as easy as, okay, we'll just push it back a day, and that's what I thought, and because that's what A and B did last week. But wait a minute, what's happening Sunday right here in town?
Yeah, graduation.
We got graduation. And you can't just push that back. You got grandmas and grandpas coming in from afar away. So there's that, and I'm sure the OSSA takes all that into consideration. Then, playing conditions and fields and moving fields around. Well, other schools have graduations and games and stuff like that, too. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens. And they have plans. They have always had these contingency plans. The OSSA does. I'm just kind of anxious to see what happens here.
I guess maybe in a perfect world, the Elk City game gets done, and maybe if you see that the storms are building, in that 4 to 5 o'clock range, and it's available, maybe you just put the tarp down, let the storm blow through, and then maybe try to pick it up. So more of a delay for just a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow looks fine. You know what I'm saying? Tomorrow looks like the best day for sure of all of these. And then, of course, the rain Saturday. So it's very, very interesting.
On the text line, saying that it is possible to play on the same day as graduation. Weatherford did it. That wouldn't mean that the state championship game would have to be played like at 10 a.m. It feels.
Well,
like.
here's another problem.
What time's graduation? It's afternoon.
Well, but there's also 3 games.
Yeah, all at
2A, 3A, and 4A.
Yeah.
Maybe those wouldn't be the same place, and then you could have them early enough to get everything in. Yeah, that's everything's up in the air. Past 11 o'clock this morning, it's just all up in the air to see what happens weather-wise. But, 1:30, Big Elks and Oologah, first round of the Class 4A baseball tournament. First game of the day is Fort Gibson and Tuttle. That'll be an 11 o'clocker. That was a really good game last year. Fort Gibson kind of had Tuttle on the ropes until they botched a pop-up.
Yeah.
So that was a little, a game that I think Fort Gibson left thinking, boy, we could have won that one. And then after the Elks, it's Blanchard and Pryor. It's supposed to be the 4 o'clock start. And then the nightcap, Cushing and Lone Grove. Cushing, the lone undefeated team in the tournament, coming into the state tournament, 25-0.
I didn't think I realized that.
Yeah, they're undefeated. Those two have been pretty dominant against the teams they've played. Mm-hmm. They really have. Yeah, listen, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
If the choice is play for the state baseball title or miss graduation,
mail me my diploma.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's where my mind would be as well. So we've got that 1:30. That'll be fun. Also, state tennis tournament will start tomorrow with Elk City up there. I think they got the seeding meetings and all that, and then matches will start Friday, go into Saturday. The OKC Tennis Center, that could be another one. I don't think that whole thing is under roof, is it? It'd be a massive building. It's like 20 courts.
Good question.
So that can be another thing to be on the lookout for. Also, something that I missed. I don't know how I missed it. I knew that she did great in regionals, but Merritt Sprague and Barnett had a day at the 2A track meet last Saturday. She won the 300 hurdles, was third in the long jump, and was third in the 100-meter hurdles maybe?
It's awesome.
Yeah. And she could, she's an awesome shooter. The shooting sports.
Man, talk about an all-around.
Yeah, so she won the 300 hurdles. Was it the 100 hurdles where she was third? Yes, the 100 hurdles and the long jump. And she missed out on the 100 hurdles by 19/100ths of a second. So that was a close race. And then long jump third. It's a pretty good day. Pretty good day.
Looking at a aerial view of the OKC Tennis Center, most of these courts are outside.
Yeah, I thought they were. I thought there may have been some in and some and most out.
Pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it's a heck of a facility.
Facility, yeah. Right there off of, what is that, Portland? I guess I never really paid attention to tennis, and where's that at? Yeah, pretty much at the intersection of, what is that? Anyways. Yeah, we'll see. But I think Friday it actually will be okay. It's weather-wise.
Yeah, I think tomorrow's going to be nice.
But it's a matter of today's games getting stopped and pushed back into Friday. Will there be enough fields for them to play on? And playable fields, too. It depends on how much rain.
That's right. And how quickly, we saw this at Shawnee last year. Where it started raining, they were trying to get the tarp down, but it was lightning and they wouldn't let them on the field. And so you just sat there and watched. I mean, you just sat there and watched it rain on that field because it couldn't get the tarp on because of the lightning. And you went, well, this is done.
Yeah.
This may be done for 2 days. I mean, it's for sure done today and probably done tomorrow at Shawnee. So that's another key aspect of it with A, the amount of rain, and B, how fast you can get what you've got on there to protect it as much as possible on the dirt because it is a normal, natural field. Mm-hmm. Question: has J-Mac said who he's pitching yet? If he has, I would never say that on the air.
I think it's under lock and key.
I think I have an idea of what could happen, but he has not said, "Hey, guess what, Skin? Here's who I'm gonna throw." That has not happened to this point. If he's listening on the bus, maybe he can text us and we will know. We won't let everybody know. We'll just say it into the microphone. Only those listening will hear it. Who would you go with?
Yeah. To me, this is great because I was having this conversation with my wife, of all people. It would be, for me, I would go with best available, and that's Cash. You don't want to say what if, but that's me.
What if Tuttle wins ahead of you?
Oh, boy. Then Coop?
Well, I mean, that's what the thought process has to be. But here's another thing that goes into this is maybe you could have your cake and eat it too.
I know where you're going.
With rain,
yeah.
You throw Cash today, rain out tonight. What does that look like for tomorrow? If you can't get, so let's say those other two games have to be played. Some other, maybe other games have to be played at Edmond Memorial. From 2A, let's say. Mm-hmm. They can't finish. So all of a sudden now you got a 4-game day to finish the quarterfinals, which means you push the semis back to Saturday. Oh, it rained all day. Probably, then it's supposed to rain all day Sunday. It's a good chance on Monday. So how far can you maybe get both? Have him throw today and then throw the next game as well.
Right. What about pitching him a certain amount of pitches? Which
that's not happening.
Like 40?
35.
35?
That's not happening. I mean, I think the only way you see something, that scenario at all, is if, say, he went out and threw 2 innings, and after 2 innings it was 12-0.
Exactly.
Something, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like
yeah.
a weird thing like that. But I think once you get him out there, your plan is to use him. And Jared's right. And you're right.
No, I'm not. Broadbent's right, not me.
No, but you said the same thing. You can't – the last thing you want to do, I'm sure, and Jay's – it's in his mind as well, is you don't want to be that guy that lost without throwing him. And
Yeah,
so,
you
and
can't-
sometimes I think
the what-if game, you can't do that. You
and I
can't-
think sometimes everyone gets caught up into how to win the whole thing and forgets you got to win the first game,
Right.
which I don't think that's the way that Jay's thinking. I would be pretty surprised, just me, knowing him the way that I do, I would be pretty surprised if when Big Elk TV came on the air, it wasn't Cash Mayfield on the mound. I would just be pretty surprised. Even though it's tempting, and it is tempting, and in a lot of ways, this is it's a huge compliment to Cooper and the way that he's thrown to even be having this conversation when you got a guy that has been as dominant as Mayfield has been. Yeah. But that Cooper Church has been phenomenal.
He was great last weekend.
No doubt.
Great.
I mean, he has been, and that's kind of the luxury that the Elks enjoy that maybe some other teams don't in this 4A state baseball tournament is, you can have a legitimate conversation about not putting Mayfield out there.
And I'm
now wait a minute. Do you know that?
I'm not reading that text out loud. I'm kind of leaning towards you paying attention to that Tuttle for Gibson game in what happens. I'm kind of leaning that way.
So what Jared's saying is because Cooper has pitched against Tuttle a couple times, Tuttle has seen Cooper. If the Tuttle Tigers win game 1, then you could see Cooper throw today and Cash throw on
let's do this
the next day.
Call Jay. It's game day. No, it's game day. Let's break down this tournament. Are the 2 best teams on one side of the bracket?
Man, I don't know. I think Lone Grove is really good. Obviously, Cushing's undefeated. Then all you got on the other side is those 2, and then the defending state champion in Blanchard, who is back.
Last time a Cushing team was undefeated, they lost in a championship game, so I hope it's them.
I think it's pretty wide open, honestly.
That was a shot at football. Go ahead.
I think it's wide open.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
I think you can make a case for a bunch of these teams to win. Yeah, I think you can make a case for
there's
anybody
Blanchard's
to
history
win.
there. Tuttle's been great. You talk about history there. Elk City is that team that nice show. You always see that team that was really good last year or in the year prior had a really good showing in the state tournament up until that suicide squeeze there in the semifinal. And then you always see that next team that next year is like, okay, they broke through. So there's that for Elk City.
Yeah, right here. Fort Gibson's got 5 seniors committed to play college baseball,
And,
1 at OSU.
Yeah, and a team that was there last year and gave Tuttle everything that we talked about that. I can get on board with that as being wide open, sure.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's
I was kind of
open.
talking with somebody about this very conversation, and I said, man, sometimes I wish, and I don't know how. Now, help me out. How do they seed them? Is it based off of?
It's not seeded.
It's just.
No,
I know, but how they finish.
District 1 champ
Right.
plays District 8
Okay.
champ.
That's what I thought.
From the regional, yeah.
I kind of wish they'd throw all that out and go, let's reseed these.
I think there is some conversation about that changing.
Okay, here's our 8. Who's and have a coaches meeting or officials meeting, something, and go, this is clearly the best team. 1 versus 8.
I think there
2 versus 7.
I think there's conversation about that changing at some point.
Because if you want my personal opinion, and a lot of times people don't agree with it, I feel like Elk City and Tuttle are the 2 best teams. That's my opinion. And I hate that there's a potential semifinal matchup for it. I'd want to see it in the championship game.
It could be. When you look at what the Elks have done, winning both games home and home with Blanchard, one pretty handily, and the other just a classic that was a walk-off. Tuttle's been really good, but I mean, I think that there's just a bunch of good teams, and you hope when you look at pitching, I think Elk City, Tuttle, and Blanchard seem to have maybe the most, which would obviously help. Moving on.
That's 100% what you need to win a state tournament. We've said that for years. You can't rely on one pitcher in a state tournament. It just doesn't work.
I think maybe Lone Grove.
You can get to a state tournament with the one strong arm. And that's testament what you talked about with Cooper, with Gino, with those guys. They're just as good. I mean, they're not Cash Mayfield good, but they are quality pitchers in Class 4A. I agree with you there. They have a great rotation there.
Yeah, 5 playoff games and giving up 1 run.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost as good as you can do, and in a regional that a lot of people thought was the toughest one in the state. So, not only they threw it well, and that has to continue, and get the hits when you need them, and next thing you know, it could be a lot of fun to be wearing the brown and white this week.
Yeah. Well, should be interesting.
Should be
interesting. Should be a lot of fun. And like I said at the end of the regional last week, I got a really good feeling about the Big Oaks this weekend. Or whenever it gets played. But I got a really good feeling. But don't discredit Oologah. Like I said a couple days ago, they have won a handful of games here as of late. They're coming in pretty hot. And you got a team like that came in dramatic fashion. I mean, they're on cloud 9, 100%, 110% confident coming off of that comeback win against Salisal, where they were in the corner on the ropes, and they came out of it with the win.
They've been really good offensively all year long. Really good. So, there's that old adage that good pitching beats good hitting. We might find out this afternoon. Once again, 1:30 with the Big Elks and Oologah. 1:30.
And if we're looking for common opponents, Oologah beat Weatherford earlier in the year 11-3.
I think Elk City beat them 11-3. One of those 2 district games.
Yeah, it was. Looking for there's not really other common opponents.
Here's the deal. It's the best 8. It's going to be a quality opponent each and every time you go out.
Yep. All right.
I can't tell if our man Will is yanking our chain or if he's being serious. He says he's being serious. We'll keep on harping on it, but don't forget, 1:30 this afternoon, Big Elk TV, the Elk City Elks, and the Oologah Talala Muscatine. Are you gonna? I got a question for you, Jared. Are you gonna say Oologah Talala every time?
Probably not.
That seems like a lot. Seems like the cat could get your tongue on that one.
No offense to the good folks at Talala. Is that a town, I assume?
I assume.
Okay.
Like Arapahoe Butler.
Right.
I think it's Oologah Talala.
Okay.
I don't remember the school Talala.
I feel sorry for those towns that are the second name in the consolidation because they often get dropped. We don't say Fort Cobb Roxton a lot. We just say Fort Cobb.
It's true.
We do say Arapahoe Butler a lot, though.
Yeah.
I do anyways.
It just kind of depends on how easy it rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Arapahoe Butler. Oologah Talala.
That's a little hard.
That's a little bit tongue twister.
It is. It's interesting because, Cheyenne Raiden isn't very hard to say.
No.
But I find myself leaving Raiden off.
Yeah.
And just saying Cheyenne.
I feel sorry for those towns. What about the town up north where they consolidated like 3?
Fargo Gage Fort Supply?
Yeah. Fargo Gage Fort Supply. And then I believe the actual high school is in Fort Supply. And it's the last one of the 3.
Yeah, you hear people do this. Lakeeba Sickles, but you just say Sickles. Lakeeba's one of the only ones that might get the front end town get left off.
I've always said Lakeeba Sickles.
Lakeeba Sickles.
Hydro Weekly.
But Lakeeba Sickles, I mean, that one's been that way since I can remember.
Same here. Growing up, it's always been
Right.
Oologah Sickles.
You
Same
know,
thing with Hydro Weekly.
I mean,
it's always been Hydro Weekly.
I mean,
for
I
me.
went to a game at Butler back in the back in the late 90s.
Yep.
I mean, an intense basketball game at Butler.
Yeah. I remember when that school was open. Yeah.
Ruben Uribe and Josh Moore against D. Higg and Alan Orgain and Curtis Irwin.
Ooh, that sounds like
Hammond
fun.
versus Butler.
Man, I'd like to see that right now.
Oh, dude. It was intense.
Let's get that in the Warrior Dome or over in Arapahoe or something.
I think it needs to be at Butler.
Maybe at Butler. I think the gym's still there.
It was a small gym, and people were in there, and they were fired up, and it was a good game.
Burns Flat, Dill City. It's always been Burns Flat, Dill City for me anyways. Right?
Yeah, I leave off Dill City, unfortunately. But I don't remember Dill City playing anything necessarily. I know a guy that played from Dill City back in the day.
Do you?
Yeah. And he hits from the white tees now, so it must have been way back in the day.
Way back. Now, sorry, Talala.
It's going to be Oologah.
I might at the very end. Elk City wins big over Oologah Talala. Let's take a break.
My wife would say, don't throw that out there into the universe. Afraid you'll jinx it.
Oh, I see.
Good stuff. NBA playoffs last night. Both teams that had to win did on their home floors, forcing Game 6s. As New York knocked off Miami 112-103 to go back to Miami for Game 6 with the Heat a chance to eliminate the Knicks. Jalen Brunson was awesome last night with 38 on 12 of 22 shooting. And so the Knicks stave off elimination and head back to Miami, as did the defending champs. I think we both had a pretty fair idea that we thought this would happen. And Golden State knocks off the Lakers 121-106. Golden State got 20 plus from Curry, Wiggins, and Green and Draymond. Anthony Davis left on a wheelchair with a head injury. That was weird. Chuck and Shaq had some fun with that after the game. Like, why do you need a wheelchair if your head hurts? Type thing. But now it comes down to these Game 6s for those road teams trying to get back home for Game 7. Had that stat that Golden State, after winning on the road in round 1 against Sacramento, they have won a road game in 28 straight series, which is an NBA record. And that streak is going to have to get to 29 in order for the Warriors to have a chance to repeat as champs. You know, this is where we've seen those guys. I mean, everyone remembers Game 6 here in 2016 when Klay Thompson just went absolutely nuts. Durant and Westbrook folded down the stretch, and the Warriors went on to come back from a 3-1 deficit to knock out the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. I just don't quite get the sense that they had the firepower to do it this time, though, Jared.
This feels like a Showtime and Hollywood type game, and LeBron's going to show up and close this out in front of the home crowd.
We haven't seen LeBron go nuts yet in this series. And kind of picking his spots and we haven't seen it happen. And I have a feeling you're right. That's exactly what I was thinking is watch out. We're going to see LeBron take over this basketball game like he hasn't done yet and force the Lakers into the Western Conference Finals.
Right. Seems like that stage is set.
Yep. We've seen him do it in the Game 6s as well.
Yeah.
Most notably the year in 2012 going into Boston in a Game 6 and putting up like 48 to force a Game 7 in which they would win and then, of course, knock out the Thunder in the finals. Speaking of Boston, they're going to have to win on the road tonight against Philly. Down 3-2, as is Phoenix, but Phoenix is at home. That's the difference there. The home team has won every game in that Phoenix-Denver series. Philly and Boston. Philly's won twice in Boston. Now can Boston return the favor and force a Game 7 back at home? Of these two series, which one is still playing after tonight?
I'll go with, I think, Boston's Sixers.
Boston wins.
I'm not ready to bury Boston just yet. Yeah, I think Boston wins. How about you?
I would say I think they're both done after tonight.
Really?
Yeah. Man, there's just something wrong with Phoenix. Ayton's pouting. CP3 is hurt. You know, they're depending so much on Durant and Booker. And if those guys aren't just superhuman, it just feels like Denver has too much. They can't do anything with Jokic because Ayton can't even get in his way. I just think that this may be it for Phoenix, and then they'll try to figure out what to do to be a title contender next year when they have kind of a whole season with Durant being there and an off season to reshuffle the deck a little bit. All right, college football. If I said to you, Jared, who was the best team in the playoff era? Just the 8-9 years of the playoff? This will be year 10. Is that right?
Believe
I think so. Yeah, 2014. Yeah.
Still
It's hard to believe. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been that many. If I in that span of time, if I said to you, who was the best team to never make it into the playoff, who would you say?
Man.
Not historically as a program.
Like a specific team?
I'm talking about
or just a program?
Just a program.
That's been good in that playoff era?
In that playoff era, but hasn't made its way into the playoff.
Well, I mean, it's hard-pressed not to say Oklahoma State. Am I right? They've had some good teams in this time span we're talking about, and they've just missed out. And it feels like even times that if they got in, they had a real shot of winning the whole dang thing. So I'll go with that one. I mean,
I think
about if they win the Big 12 championship game.
Just 2 years ago.
Just 2 years ago. They had a defense that could shut down really good offenses. And I would have loved to see that in the playoff and see what would have happened. But Oklahoma State. I mean, they've had a lot of wins in that time span too, and it's just kind of eyebrow raising. Go, wow, they've won that many games and have not punched their ticket to the playoff. They haven't broken through to the playoff. The big problem with that is like, oh well, because OU kept getting in.
That's right.
They kept winning the Big 12 and going. So I'll go with Oklahoma State. It just kind of felt like we're just waiting for them to get in, and they haven't yet.
I think it's one of three, and it's OSU's one of those. Oklahoma State, I think, is there. I think you can build a case for Wisconsin to be there. They've fallen off a little bit the last couple years, but now with Fickle. But they've been consistently good. And I think Penn State is that other team.
Yep.
That are those three to me seem like the ones that belong in because of their. They've been consistent. They've been pretty consistently good throughout the entirety of that time span. Mm-hmm. There's maybe a little bit of dip here and there, but for the most part, you're thinking of those teams as contenders. And then the other one is Utah.
Yeah.
No, Utah's been good throughout that time as well. So those are kind of the ones. And it's funny because there's some blue bloods on this list that we're about to talk about that haven't been as good as kind of these teams that aren't quite considered in the same upper echelon of the history of college football, like some other teams that still haven't made it to the playoff, but have a little bit more of a rich history throughout the entirety of the sport. So taking everybody into account that hasn't made it to the playoff, I ask you, who's got the best chance to make it this season for the first time?
Well, let's go with Utah. With everything
of everybody, you can now bring in
I know
everybody. Okay,
that has not made the playoff.
That's right. Yeah.
Who has the best chance to break through this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll stay with Utah. If they can, it would almost have to be a perfect season. It would have to be a perfect season, right? Because of their perception of the Pac-12. I know Pac-12 kind of changed people's opinion last year, and it helped with Caleb Williams win the Heisman in USC and all that. But then they took a shot to the you-know-where after losing to Tulane. But Utah's over here going, hey, we beat these guys twice. We're the reigning Pac-12 champs, and they got a lot coming back too. If they can go through undefeated, do it again, I can definitely see them breaking through. And there's in that perception of the Pac-12 got a lot better with, well, I mentioned Caleb Williams, Cam Rising, DJ at Oregon State. Oregon's looking pretty good. They look like they're a trending team on the way up. So it's not a laughable league in the immediate. I don't think it will be next year.
No.
So give me Utah.
No, it's there. I think you can make the case that the Pac-12 is the second best league in the country. And a big part of it is because of those quarterbacks that they got coming back.
Mm-hmm.
The Heisman winner, you mentioned DJ.
Bo Nix. That's
Bo Nix.
Oregon.
Yeah, Bo Nix at Oregon. Penix Jr. at Washington.
Love that guy.
All of a sudden, Shadir Sanders at Colorado. We'll see how good he is.
Yeah, true. Well, who's he going to throw to?
Yeah, maybe nobody. But I think the Pac-12, and that's why I wouldn't say Utah or USC, is because of how good the Pac-12 is going to be.
I cannibalism
think,
effect.
Yeah. I think it's just a little bit, and Utah's schedule, they got some really tough games on the road, especially. I mean, you look at out of conference, they go to Baylor. How good is Baylor going to be? I don't know, but that's not. We go to Baylor, to Oregon State, to USC, to Washington. Yeah, that's a slew of road games for the Utes. Even though they may be a better team than they were a year ago as Pac-12 champs, but you wouldn't know it because of the brutality of that schedule on the road. Man, that's a tough schedule. They do get Oregon at home, but man, I mean that's pretty rough. I would actually. God, am I really going to do this? Am I going to buy in? Am I buying into the hype?
The old Texas hype.
The burnt orange hype.
Well, it's like COVID. Eventually you get it.
It's true.
And then you get over it in a hurry after their first loss.
I think it's Texas. And schedule is a big part of it. I mean, we've ranted and talked about how bad the schedules are. Texas is obviously that Alabama game, which honestly to me it's a mulligan. If they lose, I don't think it hurts them.
Yeah.
If they run the table, they're in.
Losing to them last year didn't hurt them.
No.
Until they lost other games.
That's
but
right.
At that point, it's like, okay, this team might be all right. Look what they did against Alabama.
And then if they find a way to win that game, talk about it.
And I said this. That's very possible.
Their schedule, you know what it reminds me of? With that Alabama game right there, the 2017 Sooners going to Ohio State and getting that win.
Yeah, that's a good
and
one.
Then when you come down to you don't see this very often, but even like that year when it came down to it, kind of who was who. Ohio State was trying to make a case that this is better than Oklahoma's resume. Well, they beat you on your home field,
right?
So nice try.
There's always that, yeah.
And so that could be the same way for the Longhorns. And as soon as I say that, they'll lose.
They'll do what they do best, and that's just let you down.
Yeah.
I've
been a year's guy. I mean, gosh, he was up and down last year in a new system with a new guy. He'll have to be way better. He'll have to be more.
I think he will be, actually. I think he will be better in his second year.
Did you see what Herb said? Our old friend Herb Meyer?
No, with a girl in his lap. Now, what did he say?
He said he thought Texas had the best roster in the country.
Okay, yeah. He's clearly got drinking that burnt orange Kool-Aid,
now,
too.
wait a minute. Why do you think he's doing that?
How many times have we heard this?
Why do you think he's doing that? Do you think he's putting the pressure on Steve Sarkisian so that when he goes 7-5, they fire him, and then Herb will be right there? I wouldn't put it past him. Herb is a slimy snake.
Yes, he is. He'd fit right in down there, wouldn't he?
There's one other team that is the darling of everybody that I almost said instead of Texas. And now I wish I would have, because just seeing the disgust in your face, and it makes me realize how often we do hear this, and they're never any good, or they haven't been lately. The other one's Florida State.
Oh,
No, they made the playoff. Never mind.
yeah,
No,
they made the playoff.
yeah, they made it. They made it the first year
Right.
because they won the BCS. But that's never mind. Can't be Florida State.
Surprised we haven't even mentioned USC. I mean, I kind of did, but not in this conversation. Are they? Yeah, I mean that's kind of the same vein.
They're a little bit like
Utah.
Texas. Oh, I think they're a little bit like Texas.
Yeah,
And
they get a lot of hype, and then
see it when you believe it.
yeah,
I mean, they've been better. Riley himself has been better and has been good enough to make the playoff, obviously, here. But, gosh, did it not just feel like a broken record watching his team
yep,
do what they did a year ago?
yep. Defensively, it's like the same thing, the exact same thing, and I think that sticks with the committee, honestly. Like, why would we put a Lincoln Riley team in again just to see his defense not show up? I really do. If it's down to 2 teams, USC and someone else, say, what if it's USC and Texas and they got to pick one?
All right, so their schedule, they being USC, San Jose State and Nevada at home in the out of conference, Stanford, who's been terrible. You know, the road games in the conference at Arizona State, at Colorado. They do go to Notre Dame in the middle of October. They do go to Oregon in the next to last game of the season. They've got Utah at home. They got Washington at home. They got UCLA at home.
It's pretty tough. I mean,
yeah, I know, but still, it's hard to find more than a loss. So they feel like that they'll be in a lot of the same situation they were a year ago, depending on how everything else plays out around the country, going into the Pac-12 title game with a good shot at making the playoff. Mm-hmm. Almost a repeat of last year.
Final question about this, and we'll move on to the non-conference stuff. But, you know, Cincinnati broke through as a mid-major to get in. What team do you think maybe either should have or could mid-major?
Man, I don't know if there's any left.
That's been good enough, but there's just no room for them. Thus, the expansion is coming. But who do you think?
I think your answers all went to the Big 12.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like Houston and Cincinnati, Central
UCF.
Florida.
I mean, think about who it's been.
Right.
It's kind of been those guys.
Those guys kind of hang out. Memphis at one time was in the conversation. I found a list here of teams that have won a lot of games in the playoff era. Appalachian State has won 80.
Yeah. I think I came across that list yesterday, and I quit looking at it because it had a bunch of small schools.
Boise State, 76.
Yeah, but see,
But who you playing, you know?
You almost have to have a season on your belt and then going into the next one.
Like Cincinnati had.
Like Cincinnati had.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And there's really nobody that fits that bill.
Not this year.
You know what? Yeah, there is.
Who's that?
Tulane.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, they got that win you mentioned over USC last year. You know, so that may be them. I have no idea what their schedule is. I have no idea what they have coming back. But maybe Tulane could fit that mold.
Their coach still there?
Yeah, he's that old dude.
He didn't
Willie
move
Fritz.
on?
No,
He
Willie
didn't
Fritz is
move on?
like 70.
Good night. What are they in, the Sun something? What are they in?
No, they're in Conference USA, aren't they? Or did he go? Yeah, he's at Tulane. No, they're in the American. The American Conference. That's right, not Conference USA, the American.
They're the American, the ACC.
The AAC.
The AACCAC.
AAC.
All right.
American Athletic Conference.
Why is this so hard to find?
Here, we'll take a break while you're finding it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that non-conference stuff. They have Ole Miss in New Orleans at Yulman, not in the Dome or anything. So they would almost have to win that and win out at Memphis. Yeah, I mean, who knows?
Maybe. At least they had the cachet going into the year.
Yep.
Wrapping up a Thursday. Don't forget Big Elk's Oologah Class 4A state baseball quarterfinal coming up at 1:30. BigElkTV.com. Jared Hunter will be on site to bring you the action from Edmond Memorial at 1:30 this afternoon. All right, you were talking about the best non-conference games of this upcoming college football season. I found a list of 13
Yeah.
that is headlined by a couple we've already mentioned today. Texas going to Alabama. Florida and LSU in Orlando. Some others.
Florida State.
Florida State and LSU. Some others. Ohio State is going to Notre Dame. Then Notre Dame's going to Clemson. Washington at Michigan State. North Carolina, South Carolina. That's played at Charlotte. Utah at Baylor. There's Florida at Utah. West Virginia going to Penn State. A&M at Miami. Our new conference mates, UCF at Boise, Minnesota at North Carolina. And then here's an interesting one I did not realize until I opened up this list. Oregon at Texas Tech.
Be a good one.
Yeah, that's. I would actually put that one above a few of the ones that they have in front of it. But out of those, which one kind of looking forward to the most?
Let's go with. I just got a feeling Notre Dame's not very good. I got a feeling Texas is going to get blown out. Florida State LSU is intriguing. LSU come on hot at the end of the year. Florida State as well, but then Florida State, I mean, let's be honest, shouldn't have struggled with OU like they did. That one looks fun for me. How about you? Florida State LSU in Orlando. What about you?
Texas and Bama.
Is it?
Yeah, because I mean, for the first time in a while, when you start looking at some of these, post-spring top 25s, or there's people that don't even have Alabama in the top 5. And I don't know if that's just a giant overreaction to what they saw from the quarterback spot with Bryce Young leaving. Jalen Milroe, even when he stepped in for Young, didn't look the part of what we've seen out of Alabama. It was more of a throwback to the Jake Coker, A.J. McCarron days, Greg McElroy, than what they've had with Tua and then Bryce Young, obviously, there kind of back-to-back here at playing quarterback at Alabama, Jalen and, those guys.
Yeah, even Hurts, yeah.
So, and then, of course, Texas has all those question marks. I mean, talented, sure, but they're always supposedly talented. And and of course, it's the teacher versus the pupil that outside of Kirby Smart and Jimbo Fisher wants, nobody can beat Nick Saban that's worked for him. And Sarkisian was kind of his reclamation project down there. So I think there's a lot of things outside of just it being Texas and Alabama, just the names. I think there's question marks surrounding both of those teams.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
What happens if at the Texas-Alabama game, if Alabama comes out, quickly gets up 14-0, 17-0, Texas offense does not look good? I mean, do we already start hear rumblings of they need to put in Manning?
I don't know if he's even their next quarterback.
Yeah.
With Malik.
But that's the problem. They're always going to hear that. As soon as
it'll happen right here too.
As soon as there's
as soon as
Dylan
Gabriel doesn't score a touchdown on a drive against whoever.
Yep.
We've seen it play out.
The first overthrow. Jackson Arnold.
We want Jackson.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that Sarkisian tried to nip that in the bud as much as he possibly could coming out of spring and saying, listen.
I give him credit for that.
That's obviously an attempt. And there's some risk, even though Manning just signed. And I think they've surely had that conversation of, listen, Arch, Quinn's going to be the quarterback this year. He has a good year. He's headed to the pros. If not, beat him out and you'll be the guy. That's not something a guy that highly rated wants to hear. But I think that's just the truth of it. And for him to do that post-spring and not have some kind of Fantasyland quarterback competition that to hold somebody here or there, a la what we saw, with Austin Kendall and Kyler Murray. I think that's a little bit of a throwback to a different time in college football. Even though I get it, Arch Manning just signed this in December. There's still a little bit of a risk with the way the portal is, the way NIL is, but maybe that also speaks to You're not dealing with a normal kid. You're in a normal family when it comes to the Mannings. They get it. They've done their research. They've done their due diligence, and that's why he's where he's at. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, the fans are at 1,000,000%. You can already hear it.
Yeah.
Coming from there. I also, you mentioned that you didn't like Notre Dame. It's interesting what they've got because that hosting Ohio State and then going to Clemson, one of those in September, one of those in November, that's a tough task. I mean, obviously, if you're ranking non-conference schedules across the country, Notre Dame is going to be far and away number one playing those two teams. I want to see what Sam Hartman can do. The transfer quarterback from Wake Forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is he kind of the difference? They haven't had a difference maker at quarterback, even when they've been good. You've had a Tommy Reese or whoever, just kind of a guy at quarterback. Now, do you have a dude at quarterback with Sam Hartman? And is he kind of the key to unlocking that extra level of success for Notre Dame?
Yeah. How about the Big 12? Any non-conference games you're looking forward to?
Utah Baylor for sure.
Right. Okay, we mentioned that. Anything else?
And then the Tech. Yeah, I didn't realize that until today. Tech Oregon.
Yep.
That's it. That's really a really interesting game. And of course, there's always BYU Utah. Did they not play this year?
Golly. BYU. I had that up. BYU play their non-conferences, and this is actually one I'm looking forward to. They do not play Utah. But
I was say because if Utah had to play them. They've got Baylor, Florida, and BYU. Yeah. That's a heck of a non-conference
BYU
schedule.
is at Arkansas this year.
Yeah, there you go. I knew they had one.
Could be fun. Others in the Big 12 that kind of stand out: Kansas State at Missouri, maybe.
Nebraska, Colorado is interesting. That's not Big 12, but that one's interesting to me.
Well, you mentioned
TCU and Colorado.
TCU and Colorado. How about West Virginia at Penn State?
Yeah, that one's on this list here.
Oh, it is?
Number 9, yeah.
So something to look forward to. I mean, the ones in state, the one notable one, because it could be season defining, is OSU at Arizona State. There's nothing for OU.
No.
I mean, that Tulsa doesn't do anything.
No, Oklahoma's got. I mean, it's the easiest schedule they've had in years and years and years and years and years.
Yep.
Non-conference, it's the easiest it's easiest since the national title year of 2000. I mean, that year I think they had UTEP, Arkansas State, and somebody else. Maybe
it was it Louisville?
No.
But that was 99. They played Louisville. I can't remember.
It was UTEP, Arkansas State, and North Texas, because that's when they wore the no, that was 2003. That was 2003. I looked this up the other day when I heard him talking about it.
Yeah. Now we got to look it up before we go off air.
Oh, here it is. We'll get the answer right here. Rice. Yep.
Rice.
Right.
That's right.
That's exactly right. Rice.
Utah. Yep.
UTEP, Arkansas State.
UTEP, I'm sorry.
And Rice. But the difference was you had a way better conference that year with Nebraska, Kansas State, A&M, Texas than what you got right now. It's one of the easiest OU schedules that I have ever seen, which is, why there'll be a lot of question marks surrounding the head coaching position if Oklahoma can't show marked improvement over last year. All right, Jared, 1:30. You better get going.
Yes. Let's what was the topic we were going to cover and we forgot?
Schedule release, maybe?
Maybe that.
Bedlam in postseason.
I'm interested to hear about that. And schedule release.
Yeah, schedule release, which will happen tonight, so we can
really break
kind of
that
pick
down
through it tomorrow.
Right.
Big Elks and Oologah, 1:30 on BigElkTV.com. Everybody have a great day.
You've been listening to the Skinny on Sports podcast with Aaron Cow. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to get alerts of when the latest podcast is available. Thanks for listening.